I am the assistant executive director in this building and across the street, but I'm also the senior director of nourishment for AgeSong. So all of our AgeSong properties, I write all the menuing for, and I also oversee all correspondence with the dietitians and along those lines. So asking me what's on the menu today, I wrote that menu like 6 weeks ago, so I have no clue. Gracie Guzman is our in-house chef. She is very up on top of what we're having. You also might touch base on all of the floors as well. There are menus on the floors. So let me back up and let you guys know, today's training is about letting you understand what it's like to be in assisted living and dealing with the residents as they eat, as they're interacting, some of the best things for them to do, how to handle situations along those lines. Because to me, you guys are stepping into place in a totally different world in those specific pieces. Now I'll tell you, not as the assistant executive director of this building, but a chef for 20 years, that food is the most important part of what we do every day. I don't discount care, I don't discount activities, but if we don't eat, we die. So it's very important to me to make sure you guys understand that although we're taking care of the residents, we're also taking care of you guys as well, and we want you to take care of yourselves and eat and maintain. Now, that's preaching to the choir because of all of us, I don't feed myself because I'm too busy running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So there are a lot of people that step in place and will remind me, you need to eat as well. So the pieces here are letting you guys know what the availability is, the meal times, things to look for in signs with the residents, and understanding that the meals in these two buildings are just like if you stepped into a restaurant. That's what we're striving for. Common meal is grilled salmon plank, I can't even say it, grilled salmon on a cedar plank. And it's served with a rice pilaf and fresh green beans. That's just a standard menu item. Now you don't see this in most assisted livings because the menus are what we call a cookie cutter version of menus. You'll go through a system or a group of people that will write based on the masses. And as you guys are starting to understand, AgeSong is not like the masses. We don't do anything like anybody else. When I tell people who we are, I tell them we are the outside the box version of anything that you've ever learned. I worked in assisted living. I've been in assisted living for 10 years and I worked in a large corporation for 7. Stepped out of that role and came to AgeSong and have been here for 3 years, partly because this is more about people. And this is more about care, and this is more about the day-to-day interaction. And I tell people every day, we might be busy, we might be running around, but we create magic on so many different levels. Curtis can definitely stand up. Christina can say the same thing because you've been here. It's interesting to step back and have conversations with people just in the food realm. In the last 10 years, I've been collecting data in my spare time talking about the connection of food to memory. Meaning, as we were all growing up, whatever your comfort food was, whatever made you feel better. You were sick, you had a bad day, whatever it was, whatever your comfort food is, usually travels throughout your entire life with you. It might have a different memory associated as you travel in life, but it's pretty much always the same food. And I think with some of the group from last year when I did this, we talked about what comfort food was, and there was an aha moment of, wow, it makes perfect sense because it brings you whatever that ooey gooey feeling is that's associated with it. So it's the same idea when you're dealing with a resident. There's not a resident in either of these buildings or any building that I've ever been in that doesn't have some type of comfort food that's associated to a memory of people. So in engaging with the residents, you can always start conversation asking them what their comfort food is. And when you're dealing with someone who's nonverbal, it's a lot of hit or miss. We have a gentleman in this building specifically who can't really articulate what his comfort food is, but we figured it out pretty quickly. You laugh, but we figured it out. His particular comfort food is Coke and Cheetos. And it was literally a guessing type game, but it worked. So it's spending the time engaging. Now, In that role, I don't expect you guys to sit down and start asking questions about what your comfort food is, but if you're looking for a talking point to open up some conversation, that's going to be a huge place. Because for me, growing up in the South, learning, how food is associated with care and comfort has a whole meaning to me. So in that time frame, there's so much that you can open up on to have that conversation. But you guys also need to understand that the role that I hold here and the role that I've always held is I can't touch every resident every day. As much as I'd like to, I can't. So in your conversations with the residents, if you find something that you think that they'll like, don't hesitate to email me or call me. Because what we're doing is, if you get to a place where you're not eating, I'm going to try and stimulate your appetite by giving you something that you like. So if you're telling me on the first day that you move in that you like goulash, which I absolutely hate, I'm going to try and make goulash the first day that you're here, because I don't want you to come here and think this place sucks as bad as it could because you happen to go, oh, they're making my favorite dish. Granted, it's completely orchestrated, but the resident doesn't know that. So, it's a little game that you're playing back and forth, but the families really enjoy the idea because it gets them involved. And then they're sitting there going, I don't like the people that I'm with. I don't like the fact that I have to be here, but the food can't be that bad because it happens to be my favorite. So it's an immediate place that we start moving to set up a relationship, because everything that we're doing, as you know, is relational based. It's all about developing a relationship with who you're dealing with. So that's you guys dealing with each other. That's you guys dealing with me. That's you guys dealing with the residents. But it's also all of the good memories that most people have are around food. So you're opening up a place where it's comfort and it's easily known. So you start the conversation, but then as you start moving through, different people go in different areas, but you start opening up a place for you guys to find out that they happen to used to go to someplace in downtown. You start that process. It's your side of this, but it gives you an in from my side to be able to say, hey, let's open the door. I have found that with a large chunk of the residents that I've ever dealt with, that 90% of the complaints that you get about food and assisted living aren't really about the food. And that's even in this building with a specific resident. 90% of her complaints are not really about the food. It's the fact that she wants to be heard. I associate assisted living to senior college. We've all gone to college. Do you remember when you moved into the dorm? You didn't move into the dorm wanting to be with this person that you'd never been before, that you had to share a toilet with, that you had to share space with. This is the exact same situation, just fast forward 60 years. You're more set in your ways. You want things a certain way. It's that much harder. So when you tell someone that you have to move into a room with a guy who likes to listen to the TV late at night, it's very difficult. I mean, the transition period, we just had two gentlemen transition in yesterday, and they're both at the front door, literally going, okay, where do I get to go? Only because it's different. Just like you guys are transitioning into a program right now, which is a little bit different than what you're used to. You are our senior college version of interns. This is my 4th group of interns. And it's going to be entertaining watching you guys over the next month because, for lack of a better way to put it, you're just getting comfortable in our world. We're getting comfortable with you and you're getting comfortable with us. But we're asking you to come into a system and adapt to what we're doing. So it's the same way with the residents. So when it comes to, I don't particularly want to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and eat breakfast because I've never done it in my life. Who are we to ask them to change? If you're 95 years old and you never ate breakfast, why am I going to yank you out of bed at 9 o'clock in the morning and make you get up and come eat breakfast? I'd be a pissed off human being. I don't know about you guys, but I would be. So therefore, our system is trying to cater to what works best for them. And you guys are very influential in that piece because you're helping to collect the data of what works, what doesn't work. Yes, we do a huge intake with the family, but something you'll learn about working with families is they have this idea of the way it's supposed to be, of what they want, And then we have the actual person. You have the daughter sitting here saying, I want him to partake in every activity. And you have a gentleman who is introverted and doesn't want to take part in anything. This is more about what the daughter wants than versus what the resident wants. It's the same thing about food. We support 4 diets in this building, meaning it's a standard above board that we support a no added salt diet. We do not cook with salt at all, which does tend to make the food a little bit bland if you're used to having salt. I personally don't eat salt at all, or try not to, but there are a lot of other additives in the food itself, in the sense we're using fresh herbs, we're using things like Mrs. Dash, things like those that do enhance the flavor. But we're also really key towards using as much fresh and local produce as possible. Same thing with our fish and our meats, which is a lot different than your average assisted living as well, because they bring in everything frozen. Of course, we're just like everybody else. We do get stuff that's frozen, but we are able to, as I call it, skirt the system by using more fresh, which of course makes the food taste better. We also support a CCHO, which is a controlled carbohydrate diet, which is for everybody that doesn't want to keep up with CCHO. It's a diabetic diet. So if we're having chocolate cake with chocolate icing for dessert, those specific people that are listed as diabetic will be offered a cup of fruit. If it's white rice, it will be brown rice. Now, in saying that, before you guys already get on the tangent when you start looking, oh my God, Mr. O'Hora is having white rice, you also need to understand that the menu is written where if you follow breakfast, lunch, and dinner as written, you are well within your sugar grams for the day. So if it does say that they're getting a Rice Krispie treat, it's built in that they haven't had enough sugar not to have that. So don't freak out. If you're noticing that they're lethargic or something like that, by all means, you guys, as I say, are first responders as well. You can step up and easily say, hey, I'm not too comfortable with this. That's fine. We can work together on that. That's why I gave you all my cards with my email. So if you have concerns in those respects, please don't hesitate. Being dual rolled in this respect kind of gives me 2 perspectives. The food side, because it's obviously, to me, as I put it, second nature. But also as the assistant executive director, it's another side of it to address any concerns. The other diets that we support are, they're texture modified. So when I say texture modified, you'll have people in both of these buildings that don't have the dexterity in their hands anymore to use a knife. So instead of standing over them, cutting their food for them, we have a texture modification called mechanical soft. Now that texture modification can be as small as itty bitty tiny small pieces, which is related to whether they can chew completely or swallow completely. But then it's also as plain as we're having a piece of hanger steak and you're just cutting it for them, so all they have to do is fork it themselves. Then we also do texture modification in the liquid. And this one's a very, very confusing one because in 20 years of being a chef, 10 years in assisted living, what you think honey thick is and what I think honey thick is 2 different things. You have honey thick, nectar thick, and just, I don't even know what they're calling it now, but it's almost it's a very, very thick liquid, so you're not choking. All of the thickened liquids are done by the care partners because they are trained by our in-house staff as far as home health agencies, hospice agencies, though they are trained accordingly. So I caution you, please don't be involved in the thickening process if you're not aware of thickening. Now, if you're in an emergency and you have to do it, you can ask and they can direct you in how to do it. But one rule about thickener you need to know is that if you put in 2 tablespoons of thickener right now and move it to the side, in 5 minutes, you can hold the cup upside down. It is so thick, you could dap the walls with it. So you have to be very careful in the consistency of thickeners. Those are the 4 things that we support. Now, we have people in different buildings that are gluten-free. We have people that are in this building that are brittle diabetic, meaning we can make them have all of their regular sugar throughout the day, monitor them, but they can swing from a regular reading at breakfast to completely off the charts in 2 hours. And that's not anything that they're eating. It's just chemistry. One of the good things about being here is because of the nurses, we can keep a very good track of that. but that's just about their chemical makeup and what they're doing. Granted, sometimes they do add to it, but we're able to support that. Now, in those respects, he has a very specific diet, and we follow accordingly. So you have those types, you have the, like I said, the gluten-free. She supports as much as she can based on the menu. We sit down with a menu at a week at a glance, and she goes through and circles what she wants. Now, in this piece, I tell you this is about choice. This is about being able to stand up and say, today I don't particularly want to eat X, because as our fearless leader has put it, it's freedom to be, which is a double-edged sword, because in freedom to be, you're allowed to choose what's good for you and you're allowed to choose what's bad for you. Now, in my role, in Gracie's role, in Melody and Gina's role as wellness, we can caution, but again, it's about freedom to choose. And the reason I say that is because obviously I sit on both sides of this. I had a family member in another community who adamantly told me that their dad could never have bacon, ever. And after talking to the resident, the gentleman said, well, you know what? I've had bacon every day for my whole life. Why are you telling me I can't have bacon? So it then became, is this something that the family wants they don't want them to have? Is it medically a reason? Is his cholesterol too high? But that's where we get involved and start making those changes if we can. Having the conversation with a resident, hey, your cholesterol is like 700. One of the reasons we talked about doing this was because it's a little high. You know, it's a little high. So then those are the places where we start stepping in and having those conversations. But again, it's about choice. You know, and no one in this room knows me with the exception of a few people. I'll be the first person to tell you I'm the biggest rebel in this entire establishment. So if you're telling me yes, I'm going no, simply for the sake of argument. He can definitely attest to that one. But at this,
what was the solution to your bacon thing?
They are now eating turkey bacon. So there's a creative way to solve that. Granted, I get a lot of, that sucks. I don't like turkey bacon, but it's better than no bacon at all. So we are very creative in trying to solve those particular situations. A lot of happy middle, or try to at least. And then sometimes it's just conversations with the doctors. So we definitely step back, and as I said, and I'm sure you've been told in the last 2 days, it's the whole approach. So it's not just the medical piece we're addressing, it's not just the food piece, it's not just the psychosocial needs, we're rolling it all into one. So for me, it's being able to step back and assess the whole situation, just like you guys are doing. You're looking at it as a whole, as an outsider looking in, trying to figure out what's best. We're doing the same thing, just from a different perspective. You guys will come in collectively once a week and be here on Wednesdays to train. Throughout your time here, you'll come in on different days and you'll do different things, but you'll all be in and out of this world. And this piece for me is letting you guys know that you're more than welcome in any situation to ask for things that you need. But please understand that there are boundaries and guidelines for that as well. I'm asking you, please understand, because I oversee just about everybody in both of these buildings, please clean up behind yourselves. Last I checked, none of you came out of my body, and I'm not responsible for cleaning up after you. So I'm asking you, please, 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 if you have a mess, clean it up. I'm also asking you, if you're eating in-house, be aware of where you're eating. You're more than welcome to sit down and eat with the residents. In fact, I encourage it simply because what you're doing, instead of sitting there while they're eating, is you're encouraging them to eat because you're eating. Because at some points in different stages of forgetfulness, people look down and they see the food and they see the fork and the knife, but they don't remember that they're supposed to pick up the fork and eat. So if you happen to pick up a fork and start eating with them, they're looking for you for a cue, and you have now cued them, and you didn't have to say, hey, do you want to eat? Can I help you eat? It's dignity. It's a huge dignity piece. So it's a great opportunity for you to have relationship and to be able to have a conversation, but you're also doing something that's a day-to-day, very, very important need. If you choose to eat with the residents, as Curtis said, please just go to the front desk, buy your $2.50 meal ticket, hand it to the kitchen, and let them know that you're going to eat with the resident. Because I'm not sure if you guys have noticed or had the opportunity to look around. The way the food is done in these two buildings is it's hot boxed by floor, meaning we have one common kitchen. All of the food is created in one kitchen, and it's hot boxed 2 locations. So everything that goes across the street to Hayes Valley is in a box, and then they serve on the floors. Same thing here. You have a box that travels from floor to floor to floor. So the idea that you walk up at 12:30 and you want to join the residents, although I welcome it and want you to do it, from a logistical standpoint, you just made it crazy for the kitchen because they're trying to portion according to who's here. So the forethought of, I think I'm going to eat with Judd today, is very helpful for them to make sure that they have enough food. No one will ever tell you that we don't have food available, because we always have food available. Anytime you hear that a resident is hungry, I tell all of you, please pick up the phone and call the kitchen. Because one of the biggest things that we deal with is people losing weight for whatever reason. They might be very, very active, they might constantly walk, or they're just not retaining the calories that they used to retain before. So if they're saying, hey, I'm hungry, I'd like a snack, by all means, please call the kitchen. Usually on each floor you have a refrigerator. It's a small, again, back to the college idea, small college-sized refrigerator, and it has stuff like yogurts and string cheeses, and sometimes there's flavored waters, there's fruit, things like that. You could easily grab one of those items, sit down, have a conversation, and however you proceed with it. But you've satisfied the snack idea, which rolls into the term that Curtis and I have coined that's called hangry. Now, I say this because I don't know if it's been touched on yet, but I promise you that if you're dealing with someone who is extremely agitated, I promise you the first thing, if you try feeding, it will help, because 9 times out of 10 when someone is hangry, it's because they're hungry and they're so damn angry that they can't get past anything else. So you're definitely trying those pieces of, let's have a piece of fruit, let's do this, let's do this. One of the residents in this building was to a point that he could not even function. He was so hangry. He ate 80 grapes. And I counted them because I fed them to him until I could get to a place where we could even just calm down just a tiny bit just to try and interact. In fact, I thought he was going to bite my hand. But the point here is you have to watch for cues, which is a big piece of this as well. If you sit down next to someone and they're very rigid in their body language and you're at the table, you kind of have to do a little assessment very quickly. Is it that they're hungry because you've cued them that they're at a table to eat and there's nothing there? Or is it a bigger picture? But 9 times out of 10, if you have someone sitting at a table, you could definitely put down a banana, which you guys will also understand that assisted livings should get price breaks for bananas, because a banana is a very mobile snack, very quick and easily self-manipulated. So we go through 120 pounds of bananas a week. So stop and think about how many bananas that is. That's a lot of bananas. So it's the phenomenon of assisted living. Bananas and apples are 2 of the biggest things that very seldom will you ever have someone say they don't want them. Even if before somebody with the family will tell you that they don't like bananas, bananas always work. Apples, when you cut them up and give people peanut butter, you can do whatever you want with people after you give them apples and peanut butter. So remember that piece too, because that's huge. But it's...
Are we okay to feed them? I mean, what's that like if we're on the floor and a person says they're hungry? Can we just hand them a banana, or what
Once you start your relationships on the floors with all of the care staff, you will also start to understand what diets they're on. There's a list on each of the floors right now in the cabinets that tells you what diet they are. So if for some reason they're mechanical soft, I don't particularly want you to try and give them an apple, because that's not going to work out. You have to get comfortable in that respect. But again, it goes back to cues, because I'm also going to tell you that the diet might say this, and you might see me come in and do something totally different, only because I'm trying something, because I don't always believe in the label. I'll be the first person to stand up and say, I understand you want them to have thickened liquids because of speech, but they're not eating anything, so let me try this. Let me try to be the one who goes outside the mold. Because if someone's going to get in trouble, I'd rather it be me. I'm comfortable in that role. And I don't want you guys to feel responsible for that. So again, it's having conversations with all the care staff. Hey, can this person have a banana? In these 2 buildings, I can't tell you off the top of my head anybody that can't have a banana. Again, it has to be because you do have some diabetics. If they've had 4 bananas before, you have to think of it from the care side of they're not going to go to the bathroom. You know, that's the logistics of you don't want to think about stuff like that, but think about it in yourself. If you ate 4 bananas, do you really need that 5th banana? So it's the conversations that you're having back and forth. And it's vice versa too. So if you're sitting here, because I'm quite guilty of it, cherries are in season right now. I sat down and ate 3 pounds of cherries. Didn't really work out in the inside, but I love cherries. It's the same idea here. If you're feeding somebody 5 pounds of Cheetos, maybe not so effective. It worked in the moment, but you learn in that respect, because I also champion you guys to turn around and look at what the care staff does. Anything you're doing, the care staff has to deal with. So if you piss them off, the care staff has to deal with it. If you're doing something that's very effective to them, the care staff benefits from that. So it's a very symbiotic relationship with everyone. We all go onto the floors and, what I say, upset the apple cart, because they all have their own flow. They all move around the floors and do their things and have their ideas and the things that they're doing. And then we just pop in and we change everything around. So then Christina and I are actually pretty famous for this. We'll pop in as a group, the 2 of us, upset the entire apple cart, and then walk off the floor. And then they call and say, you now need to come back because there's 8 people that are going, hey, we were having fun, what were we doing? We need you guys to kind of circle through and calm things down a little bit. You met Christina, obviously, right before me. We do very well at tag team of taking care of people. So if you're in a bind and you're having a situation related to, I can't get this person to eat, or I'm having problems with them trying to engage in groups, or whatever, you can reach out collectively, separately, whatever works best for you, and ask. Because one of the big differences about being here as well is, in most assisted livings, your upper management, as you'll call them, I don't believe in the hierarchy of power. We have to have it, but I don't necessarily believe in it, because if you're an executive director, I want you boots on the ground just like everybody else. I want you to tell me why you can't give someone a shower, but I'm going to try to give them a shower as well. And you guys will learn that about me, that if you're telling me that you can't get somebody to eat, I'm going to step in and I'm going to try. Because I don't have any problems in either of these buildings getting people to eat. But that foundation goes back to the relationship. If you sit down, having never met this person, and you're trying to tell them to eat, most likely they're not going to eat for you. It's about the relationship. You have to build the trust back and forth, because food is the last place you still have a choice. You didn't choose to come here. You didn't choose to live with that old codger next to you who plays this music too loud. You sure didn't choose to have to share a bathroom with the lady who sits on the toilet for an hour, but you can still choose food. And most people, when they first come here, gain what I call the senior 15, because they're coming from a situation where they probably weren't eating very well. So they come here and it's this plethora of food. It's bright, it tastes good. My God, we get ice cream at every meal. So then they gain the freshman 15, college 15, however your senior 15, and then Nodder turns to me and says, oh my God, you're making them fat. Slow down, slow down. So at that point, everybody starts to settle in. But then sometimes you get to the place where the staff and the residents are doing their thing and everybody becomes the day-to-day, and you stop noticing that Mrs. Johnson really isn't eating. She's only eating 60% of her food once a day. And I promise you that when you reach the age of seniorhood, as I call it, if you're as plump as I am, I'm not ever going to die because I have enough stores for a really long time. But most people come into this particular situation already underweight. So when you tell me someone hasn't eaten breakfast, lunch, or dinner for 2 days straight, we're already in an emergency crisis. Because that just from the piece of who I am, that's just not cool. What do you mean you're not eating? What's up with that? Is there something wrong? Because there may be something medically wrong. Their teeth hurt. They're constipated, whatever it is. But you're missing a huge piece of what's supposed to be done on a daily basis. If you happen to have people who are going and not drinking, I don't know if you guys are aware of the statistics, you can last for a really, really long time if you just drink. So that rolls me into some signs of dehydration. Does anybody know what signs of dehydration are? Never had that one. Just visible signs of dehydration. Your first one is going to be chapped lips, but if your lips are chapped, you're really down the road of dehydration. So personally, if you guys are collectively sharing chapstick, there's a problem. You guys are dehydrated. But it's even more so with the residents because they decompensate faster than we do because we're healthy. We have a little bit of stores and a little bit extra to deal with. Dehydration, I want you all to take your fingers, either hand, left to right, your 2-point pinch fingers, and pinch yourself. As you're pinching, let it go. Anybody in here stay with a little peak? Anybody stay upright? Because if you did, you're dehydrated. This is an immediate response. You have water in your skin and it lays back down. In a senior, you will not see that. They will have a little tiny peak if they're dehydrated. You'll also notice a color change. Their pallor will be a little grayer. They will also appear lethargic, non-responsive. One of the biggest first offenders in assisted living is urinary tract infections, which means you're not drinking. Your urine is sitting in your bladder for entirely too long. Now, how do you guys do something like that? You support them to drink. On all the floors, you'll have water. You'll also have different juices. You'll have lemonades and things like that. Encourage, by all means. Until you have someone tell you that that person's having dialysis and you really should not give them the 4 gallons of water they had yesterday, you're encouraged. All of that email stuff like that, once your emails are set up, will come out to you and let you know those kinds of things.
I want to translate something really quick
Yes.
into psychobabble, because we all love psychobabble, right? But Janna's giving us some great information, and I'm hearing it, and I keep going back to that treatment plans. How many of you have written a treatment plan? You know what a treatment plan is. Let's think about depression, okay? A lot of the residents here, particularly when they first get here, we're going to think, oh, maybe you're dealing with some symptoms of depression. What are some treatment goals for depression? What do we want to do?
Make them more active.
We want to make them more active. Is that a goal or is that a way of getting to the goal? No, we want to, sorry, plug your ears. We want to alleviate what we see or what we call symptoms of depression. One of the ways we get there is through diet. And so what I'm hearing, if we want to relate this into that treatment plan, we can sit and drink with someone a cup of water. You know, we're working towards getting to that goal of alleviating symptoms. So this is exactly what she's talking about. Coming in, modeling with somebody, we're eating. Some of you are coming from schools, oh, if I sit with somebody and have lunch with them, that's not therapy. That's absolutely therapy. It's the way we're getting to the treatment goal.
It's probably some of the best therapy you can do.
Some of the best therapy, that being with, whether you're eating with them, all of these being with states, giving them Cheetos and Coke, counting the number of grapes they can eat, all of those things, we need to be able to start thinking right now as the vehicle that takes us to the treatment goal.
And I challenge all of you to go outside of whatever the norm is. If you think something will work, we can try it. We're completely open to that idea. You're coming from a different place in your world than I am in mine, in the sense that you might have a fresh perspective of, well, he happens to like olives from the Mediterranean. It might be a vehicle for you to give him those olives that opens a door. Again, we support a lot of different function, but at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, it's all about food. Because if you don't feed people, again, they die. You can't care for them. You can't be therapeutically supportive to them. You can't take them for walks. You can't engage. So it's important that breakfast, lunch, and dinner are a huge piece. They are also the most social piece of the day, just in general. Stop and think at your own table at home. If you have 5 people at the table, there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of back and forth. In my house, it's a lot of banter of who's more full of it than the other. Or we're fighting about Tuesday nights at my house. There's actually about 10 people that eat at my house, and it's a bunch of chefs, and it's all a different realm, but it's all about the conversation. So I also ask you guys that if you are going to come in during the meal times, sit down and start a conversation. Because it could be as simple as, did you like the music that they played in the music group today? But you're opening up something that, again, people who are in the label of depressed or having problems engaging, if you're talking to them, they're a little less aware that they happen to be eating while they're doing it. So you're meeting, to me, as I wear that hat, the number one goal for the day is they're eating. Now, I will flip sides and let you know that we do have people in these buildings that are on hospice, which, as a chef, is one of the hardest places for me to be because we are dealing with end of life. And in the role of the caretaker and the person who wants to do everything for you in the feeding realm, it's very hard for me to have hospice tell me that I can't feed someone anymore. And for a long time, a lot of you could have had a lot of time with me trying to figure out what my hang-up is about that one. But I had a hard time just stopping. And you guys will encounter that here. That is part of the process of dying. But the best way that it was ever explained to me was, if I continue feeding this person, I'm only making the inevitable last longer in the process of dying. So they might not necessarily be awake, they might not necessarily be engaged, but I'm hell-bent on making sure they have water and some type of food. Their body is naturally dying. All I'm doing is prolonging the process. So for me, it's about a role of stepping back and allowing the process to happen. It's a huge piece of the surrender of the whole idea. Me personally, it's a hard place, and each person that's in that place, in these 2 buildings, and anywhere I've ever been, I have to be part of that to just be able to be done with it, for lack of a better way, to help them on their journey. And I encourage all of you to sit in that place of understanding that you are all shepherds of what we're doing. You're all carrying a torch here that is part of an integral part of a huge process. In whatever you're bringing to the table, whatever I'm bringing to the table, whatever everybody takes away from here. So my ultimate goal is that if you're going to sit down and eat a meal here, I want you to step out and tell people, I had the best grilled salmon today. Or, you know what, those cookies sucked. Whatever. You're walking away with some feedback. You're also allowing the residents to offer their feedback, and it's an open exchange. Now, again, I open all of this up to you for questions regarding any of the process. In how do we do this? How do we become a part of this? Because again, like I said, it's you guys stepping into a role that's already established. But my piece in this is making you feel as comfortable as possible, and I will take care of all of you as long as you take care of yourselves, take care of the residents, and help us do what we're doing. So until you do otherwise, you're on my plate. Breakfast in this building is at 7:30, starting on the first floor. But remember, it's a box. So 7:30 on the first floor takes them about 15 minutes to serve. They move to the second floor, it's 7:45. Third floor, they're there by 8. And it runs concurrently across the street. They start at 7:30 on the first floor. Second floor, they're there by about 7:45.
What happens to those if they want to eat later or not, or?
You will start noticing in the areas that you'll see plates that are covered in the refrigerator and it'll have a resident name on it. Meaning, again, we refer back to Bob, who doesn't like to eat at 7:30 in the morning, prefers to eat at 9. His plate is saved for a period of time. We do not save food for more than 4 hours. Only because you got another meal coming. I mean, and after hours, there are always snacks available. We send sandwiches up on the PM shift for people in the middle of the night that are still hungry. So lunch is at 11:30 and runs concurrently, 11:30, 11:45, and 12 in this building. Dinner is what I call the senior special, starts at 4:30. Most meals, on average, should really take about an hour. This is not a race. We are not feeding cattle. I really don't want to see people rushing the process, because if you're rushing me when I'm eating, I'm throwing things at you. Let them eat. Let them enjoy. Now, when you go on the floors, you'll also have the diets in the cabinets. You'll also have food allergies as well.
Vegetarian option?
We have an always available menu that has cheese omelets. It'll also have a veggie sandwich. It could be, we actually have 3 vegetarians between these 2 buildings. So if they're having spaghetti with meatballs, they're having vegetable spaghetti. They'll offset it as much as they can, the actual menu, unless they order something different.
We are slowly moving to an all-tofu diet.
No, we're not. No, this is where we will disagree. If we're offering any kind of beer, it's going to be near beer. And the only reason that is because we're also dealing with substance abuse here, right, that you don't particularly want to say, oh, I'm sorry, I know you're an alcoholic, you can't have beer. You're trying to facilitate the facade of, I really want a beer, of the idea, I want the, whatever it is associated with the idea, the control of, I want a beer. I'm going to give you an O'Doul's. Not going to tell you it's an O'Doul's. It tastes like beer. Now, we do serve alcohol at some of our functions. Now, in those particular situations, we have a lot of watchdogs. Because again, we do have specific people that we really have to pay attention to. And if you happen to notice that they're gearing towards the alcohol, much to our fearless leader's demise, we pull it. Because I don't particularly want to have that type of issue where you're setting someone back. Now, again, if I know she's an alcoholic and that's her deal, I can't stop her from going to the store and buying it if she can leave the building. I can't tell her she can't have it. So again, it comes back to that choice. I want to be an alcoholic, leave me alone. We step in therapeutically, we step in medically, and offer as much support as possible. In this building, you have 1 gentleman out front who will always be 1 out front and 1 on the patio. In that building, more so. 3 in that building. So,
And they just go out by themselves?
no, well, depends on who it is. Some of them will go to the patio on the 2nd floor as opposed to going out front. Or with the gentleman, one of the gentlemen in this building is he has to stay within sight. And when we say sight, we don't mean directly in front of the building. I want you to be able to step out the door, and what we call it is 4 corners. If you can't see Joe Barrow in 4 corners, that's when we kind of start looking. But 4 corners being as far as you can see, 4 corners. If he's leaving, he usually calls me and lets me know. Because then we start another plan. If they're on hospice and they're to the place where we're talking a matter of days, they're in their room, most likely being supported by whatever the hospice agency's support system is, chaplains, their nurses, our nurses, their type of what they're calling liaison between the two. It's almost as if it's a cocoon type situation. The families are welcome to be with all the time, some of the time. One of the cool things about that type of situation is we just step in and offer where we can. If your dad is dying and you want to stay in the room, we facilitate that. If you're here 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for that in process, I'm feeding you as well as I'm trying to support in that process as well. So it's not uncommon. And I'm not sure if you guys have seen the rooms. The rooms are a little smaller than the average, but we've taken a futon and put it in the room so the son could be with the father as he was passing. And it's probably one of the most beautiful parts of the process because it's something so small. You know, I told you guys when we started, we create magic every day. You just have to be able to recognize what the magic is. And that right there is part of the magic. Because you gave them something, you've been able to help. Because as you get closer and closer in the dying process, you're standing there going, what can I do? You are able to do that. I would encourage you to go to Melody and Janna, which are our wellness director and wellness coordinator. But then if it's a case where they're not eating, you definitely can email me and you can email Gracie as well. Because the first thing Gracie's gonna do is, she's my little paratrooper, she jumps in place and she'll start asking the care staff, why isn't this person eating? Is it because they're angry? Is it because they're just not eating? Whatever it was. We start problem solving. And then when it gets to the place of we're not really sure, that's when we sit down collectively and try and figure it out. We have a suggestion box. They also have community meetings once a week. And trust me, yeah, we talk about the fact that we open the cafe or we talk about the fact that we changed the schedule, but 60% of the meeting is about the food. This sucked. We really like this. We want more of this. It's always. So, I mean, because again, you're going to have people, you're never going to satisfy people 100% of the time. And if I'm shooting for about 80%, with the exception of one of the residents we have across the street, I'm doing really well. Really, really well for that satisfaction. But I also won't go as far. I mean, if you're telling me that you like boysenberry pie and you're not eating, I'm going to find some boysenberry pie to get you to eat. So I like that challenge part. Try and change the mindset because again, it's the vehicle to get you there to listen, but it's not always about the food. I did a big, long, in-depth piece of where I think I'm a psychologist in a different life, where I sat down and investigated and interviewed like 30 people that all constantly complained about food. And after the first, and your buddy's one of them, after you get past that initial like 30 minutes of you suck and everything you do sucks, it's more about my daughter doesn't come to see me. I don't have any money. I don't have a choice that I have MS. I can't control this. So you're taking all the feedback. You have to get to the place where it's not personal. Because I used to be very personal. When you told me my food sucked, I got mad. And now it's, fine, the food sucks. And if it does suck, I'll be the first to own up to it. But a lot of it's about what they can't control.
But if you have compliments for her, she will take them.
Of course I will. Who wouldn't?
What's your best dish?
Well, I was trained in the South, so depends on who you ask. My husband will tell you it's shrimp and grits, which is pumpkin pie, yeah.
Wait till the holidays.
We do eat well here, and I really encourage you to partake in that. Holidays are a big deal because my philosophy is I would much rather the families come here than for me to try and figure out how everybody goes out. And how many times does it happen that people just don't go anywhere? Yeah. You're their family. So sitting down with them, eating pumpkin pie, or in Curtis's case, eating a whole pumpkin pie. But I encourage you, if you have recipes to share, by all means, I'm completely open to that idea. So share. If you have a relationship and they say we want to try something, which it really opens Pandora's box because then you have residents that are looking in gourmet magazines and they're ripping out magazine articles and they want you to try it. But we try it logistically, you know, so we're open to that. Any other questions? Also, too, as I told you, a lot of people here in the upper world, stand up, come over here, are very thin because they don't take care of themselves.
This has been her biggest issue in life.
No. How can you say the food is good when you're as thin as you are? Anyway, it's a tangential thing. I cook, like I said, once a week. And there are a few people in both of these buildings. Joe Barrow today is having chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, and gravy because my daughter's birthday was Tuesday. And I needed him to go to Unlock today. So quite frankly, I made a deal. And it worked. Macaroni and cheese was last week. I made 11 small containers of macaroni and cheese. So, yeah, I'll barter with you. I'll make deals. I don't care, it works. All of our special functions as well, you guys are encouraged to attend. I will caution you that if you eat before the people that are here, I will be angry. Because we prepare a lot of food for the people from the outside, and if I love you guys, don't eat my food before everybody else eats. That's my only box that I have to stand on. So please, enjoy. Thank you, welcome.